Tonight, the College Lake Dam remains at risk of rupturing. This is a live look at the dam as crews keep a watchful eye on the situation. A potential danger still exists there tonight, but the College Lake Dam has taken a weather beating and is still standing. City officials say the dam is stable and safe, but an all clear hasn't come yet. This is a view of the area from Sky 13 from earlier today.
ABC 13's team coverage tonight from the College Lake Dam, and the overnight flooding threat continues right now. About 7 years ago, that dam was labeled a high hazard dam, and that begs the question, what's the city doing about it?
ABC 13's Carrie Beal is back now with answers from officials. Carrie?
Mark and Noreen, in 2011, the dam was considered high hazard, and officials explained that's because back then they revised some of the regulations. And so now they include more about the potential of what could happen downstream if the dam were to fail. The Virginia Department of Conservation says high risk means if it should fail, it would cause probable loss of life or serious economic damage. It's also important to understand that the city owns the dam, but the university owns the lake. So officials explained that in 2014, they both initiated a study to look at the safety of the dam and what to do about it. The study is still in the works. The director of water resources explained what they're looking at doing from here.
Well, there's two options that have been considered. One is to fortify the dam. Basically, we'd armor the dam so if it overtopped, it wouldn't erode and breach and fail. The other option would be to basically drain the lake, remove the dam, and build a bridge over Blackwater Creek.
The Wetland Study and Solutions, Inc. is working as a sub-consultant to look at dam stabilization or removal. These are some of the renderings they have come up with. Public Works says they are leaning more towards building a new bridge and removing the dam. They explain that's because Public Works is considering making Lakeside Drive 4 lanes, and there could be an advantage there to building a bridge opposed to fortifying the dam. So right now they're really just trying to determine what the best option is. Reporting live in Lynchburg, Carrie Beal, ABC 13 News.
We begin tonight with all eyes in Lynchburg on the College Lake Dam as heavy rains Thursday and Friday put it at risk of rupture. Our Sky 13 drone captured these moments as officials opened a sluice to drain excess water this morning.
Noreen and Carrie, crews are out here first thing this morning to open up the emergency valve to release some of that flood water. Now on Thursday, this entire street was completely covered in water, and we've just learned in the last couple of minutes that some of that water could be polluted. That's from an LU professor. Now the officials tell me that at the peak of that storm, the water was reaching up this high. This is a rock wall that's about street level. Now take a look at this. This is some footage from the dam during that flood, and this is how high it looks today. This is after hours of draining. It's supposedly back to normal levels. The crew tells me that the emergency valve hasn't been open in almost 50 years. The Department of Water Resources says they're doing everything in their power to make sure flooding of this magnitude doesn't happen again. Going forward, they plan to leave the emergency valve open and have someone monitor the dam regularly.
Even after we lower the lake levels and go through this process, we're still going to have someone out here 24 hours a day to make sure that if there's any changes in the dam at all, we can notify the public as quickly as possible.
The city says it could take a few days to notice a significant difference in the lake. They say the valve being open will also slow the flow of the river, which will prevent future disasters. Now, there is still some remaining damage to the roadway. If you look right here, you can see where the sidewalk actually broke during that storm. So the city says over the next 6 to 8 weeks, they'll be working to make sure that this roadway and the dam are completely stable. Live in Lynchburg, Whitney Burney, ABC 13 News.
We begin tonight with team coverage following the College Lake Dam and issues that have resulted after flooding. ABC 13's Cal Wilcox and Whitney Burney are both live. We first go to Whitney, who is following the major fish kill after the city drained the lake. Whitney, I understand the city says they didn't have any other choice.
Carrie, that's right. The city says they've been in constant contact with the Department of Environmental Quality and the Department of Conservation before they drained that lake. They say there was no way to partially drain it and maintain public safety. This was the College Lake Dam a few days ago. This was the lake yesterday, and this is it today, a near empty basin.
This water's not habitable for any aquatic life.
Professor Tom Shahidi has studied reservoirs for years. He says he's concerned about how it will affect the ecosystem.
And until there is some measure of stability here, that whole section from here down to James River is going to be very, very low in oxygen and very, very high in sediment and any other pollutants that may be released from the sediment in this lake.
Shahidi says that means thousands of fish are at risk of dying. But the city of Lynchburg says draining the lake was their only option.
We were aware that that may happen when we did this, but public safety had to be the top priority. And then secondly, we needed to get people back home. Anytime you change an ecosystem like this, you're going to have some impacts.
They say even though the lake bed is empty and families are safe, the dam is still considered a high hazard.
If we got another storm like we had last Thursday night, the lake would refill and overtop again.
Shahidi says the dewatering of the lake and killing thousands of fish was environmentally irresponsible.
What was the imminent threat that required such a rapid drawdown that had the environmental effect that we see?
The city plans to leave that emergency valve open for the time being. They say for now, this will be a retention basin that when it rains, it'll fill up, but then it'll wash right back down Blackwater Creek. Live in Lynchburg, Whitney Burney, ABC 13 News.
You are looking at a before and after of College Lake Dam in Lynchburg. On the left, the view from Sky 13 on Saturday before the city started letting water out.
And there on the right, what it looks like right now. Much of the lake drained at this hour. ABC 13 has team coverage.
Whitney, the city told you they're planning to redesign the dam, or they planned to do that years ago.
Mark, that's right. Back in 2011, there was some interest in redesigning the dam. They tell me that those conversations were put on hold and the city never established a plan to rebuild it. The Department of Water Resources says they started coming up with a plan in conjunction with the University of Lynchburg years ago. In 2015, the General Assembly announced that they would be publishing a new climate study which would affect how storms are measured and how to build infrastructure to combat changing climate. The city said they wanted to include that new information while building the new dam, but 3 years later, they're still waiting for that study to come out. Now that we've experienced major flooding, they say they're moving on without the information, but making a plan is still multi-layered.
Between us owning the dam and the roadway and then the university owning the reservoir itself. So trying to balance both of those interests with whatever we went forward with. And at that point, you also have some of the concerns in terms of public funding and what we have available and what is possible to do.
The Department of Water Resources tells me they hope to reestablish the lake as a natural wetland. They say they believe in the long run, College Lake will be much healthier. Now, over the next 6 to 8 weeks, the Department of Water Resources tell me they're going to be working closely with the DEQ and with the Department of Conservation to get Lakeside Drive back open and the dam back stable. Danner?
Well, Whitney, did they say what their biggest concern is right now going forward with that dam? I think a lot of people are interested to know that tonight.
Yeah, they actually let me know that stabilizing the sediment on the lake bed is one of their biggest concerns right now. And I have a couple of notes. They told me that in the past 24 hours, they've seen a lot of that water start to come back into the lake bed, and they're concerned that there might be a blockage on the emergency valve that they opened on Saturday. So on Wednesday, they're going to have a team of divers come in and assess and make sure that the lake is still flowing correctly. Live in Lynchburg, Whitney Burney, ABC 13 News.
The latest now from the city of Lynchburg as they work to stabilize that dam for the future. The city says divers will head into the reservoir's intake and outfall Wednesday to figure out how to manage water flow from Blackwater Creek. The city will also work with the state and several companies to stabilize the dam and the roadway for the future. They expect Lakeside Drive to be closed for the next 6 to 8 weeks as a result. Mormons Road and Hill Street are back open to local traffic.
Chris, an environmental professor, says the constant flow of what's left of the lake has created an environmental disaster.
Yeah, divers, now they went into the pipe that goes through the dam and under the roadway. They were checking the integrity of it because they don't want any more structural damage to either Lakeside Drive or the dam. Now, according to an environmental science professor we spoke with today, he says what's coming out and going into the Blackwater Creek is something no one should go jump in.
After crews closed the sluice gate this morning, a dive team checked out the pipe. Preliminary reports say everything is okay and work can continue. But with the water being so low, the Blackwater Creek is a different story.
There is an ongoing environmental disaster occurring in Blackwater Creek, and that has to be stabilized and stopped.
Dr. Tom Shahady with the University of Lynchburg tested the water flowing downstream and found levels of bacteria and high acidity. He says the draining of the lake created these high levels. Bacteria, he says, about 4 to 5 times higher than state regulations.
Under the current situation with a lot of decaying fish and a lot of dead aquatic life in that river, I think it's even more elevated than I can suggest here with these samples.
Lynchburg Water Resources says they're keeping the water low to prevent another flooding mess like we saw last week.
If we have another large storm like we had last week, we are in danger of having another evacuation situation because the dam is undersized for the capacity that we would see in a large storm like that.
They're currently working with the State Environmental Permitting Group to look at long-term plans for the dam and lake area.
We're looking at expediting that process so that we can come up with a more permanent solution than what we're doing to just shore up the dam and make it stable for the roadway.
Now, according to Lynchburg Water Resources, we should have more information about what the dive team saw inside that pipe tomorrow morning. They said the dive went a little longer than they estimated today, so stay with us on air and online. Live in Lynchburg this evening, Chris Hoffman, ABC 13 News.
New at 5, construction crews were hard at work as the city tries to stabilize the College Lake Dam today in Lynchburg. Over the weekend, the Department of Water Resources installed a new piece called a standpipe. This after officials noticed some of the lake water began to fill the lake again. Now, it helps to control water and sediment flow through the emergency valve. Over the next few days, the city will be working to finalize plans for the dam with the Department of Conservation and Recreation.
The city of Lynchburg is trying to rebuild the foundation around College Lake and downstream. The lake had to be drained 2 weeks ago after flooding threatened the dam. ABC 13's Courtney Joden explains how planting seeds could help. She was there as hundreds were released via helicopter. Courtney?
Carrie, 500 pounds of wetland plant seeds were dropped right here earlier this morning by helicopter on this lake bed. The focus now is a plan for the lake bed and future wetlands the city and the University of Lynchburg hope to establish here.
What we wanted to do was make sure that we got native wetland vegetation out there.
Jess Gearing of Lynchburg Water Resources says we'll be looking at plants that are great for a wetland ecosystem.
Great for establishing native vegetation on the lake bed that will make the sediment not go downstream into Blackwater Creek and the James River.
The city of Lynchburg decided to drain College Lake after heavy rains caused the dam there to overflow August 2nd. Although the dam didn't fail, the city says draining it would protect residents in the future. Dr. Laura Henry Stone is an environmental professor at the university.
Part of the reason that this particular blend of seeds was chosen was because that's the kind of plants that actually know how to grow in this kind of soil.
Dr. Tom Shahady is an environmental science professor at the university and a wetlands expert. He says the focus should also be on the life in the water as well.
We need to at least make a decent river channel that could be viable for aquatic life too. So some real challenges ahead to make this a viable living ecosystem, was right now it's not at all. It's pretty much a sterile mudflat is what it is.
Henry Stone says the school and city will be speaking about the next immediate steps within the next week.
In terms of putting in some kind of check dams or silt fencing or something that's actually going to slow that erosion.
We're told plants should start sprouting here within the next few days. To help with sediment erosion for the next 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to be seeing work crews out here stabilizing the dam and roadway. Then the city will be making long-term plans with the Lynchburg City will be making long-term plans with the University of Lynchburg on what those steps will be next. Live here in Lynchburg, Courtney Joden, ABC 13 News.
Good to have you with us. There is welcome news for drivers heading into the Labor Day weekend. Lakeside Drive in Lynchburg reopened today. That road closed after flooding hit on August 2nd and nearly caused the dam to fail.
ABC 13's Whitney Burney is live from the College Lake area. She has more on what crews have been doing to get you back on the road.
Mark, Carey, this roadway actually opened sooner than expected. The city originally thought that it would take a couple more weeks to fix Lakeside Drive, and businesses here say they couldn't be happier it's back open.
It's been quiet, which is unusual for Lakeside here.
It's been a sleepy month at the Great American Sleep Shop. Hunter Hall owns the business.
Well, we've been here since the kind of mid-'80s, late 80s, and We've used to seeing a lot of traffic coming through here, and of course with the bridge being out, we've come kind of the turnaround spot here.
When the city closed Lakeside Drive following the College Lake Dam's near failure, they knew things would be rough.
We had a lot of kind of rocks and things washed into our driveway, which were easy to clean up, but fortunately the SOAR itself held up really well.
But now with Lakeside Drive open to traffic again, there's growing optimism.
It's exciting to see all the progress with the seeding that we did on the lake bed. Everything's kind of coming together.
Crews replaced the historic rock wall with a guardrail and fortified the dam with rocks and grout.
We'll be keeping an eye on the weather to make sure that we know when big storms are coming through so we can be prepared in case another emergency event does happen.
Paul says he's excited to see business return to normal.
We're definitely very excited to have everybody come back and see us and come on by and use the road again.
I knew you were coming today because
Looking ahead, the city says that they may have to shut this road down periodically to maintain the safety of the dam. Live in Lynchburg, Whitney Burney, ABC 13 News.
Here in Lynchburg, the Hill City is under a local state of emergency. City leaders say now is the time for you to prepare for this storm. ABC 13's Chris Hoffman reports from Lakeside Drive, where the city is thinking ahead after last month's near disaster at the College Lake Dam.
And the city is taking precautions. Lynchburg Water Resources is going to close down Lakeside Drive here at the College Lake Dam from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to clear out any debris from the intake pipe. The city drained the lake here just a few weeks ago after it was breached last month during heavy rain. Now, right now, the city is monitoring the situation throughout the storm to keep those who live downstream safe. This morning, city leaders laid out their plan for Hurricane Florence. Public Works plans barricading some of the roads. Once they become flooded, they're going to get those barricades in place a little bit later this week. Interim Police Chief Ryan Zudema says once those barricades are up, do not drive around them. Depending on how bad this storm gets, the city may issue evacuation orders. City leaders recommend listening if you receive them.
If you choose not to comply with an evacuation order, we may or may not be able to provide you emergency services.
For any non-emergencies, you're asked to call 211. This way you don't tie up the 911 lines. In Lynchburg this evening, Chris Hoffman, ABC 13 News.